This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Trailer to Reaction. Earlier today, the second trailer was dropped for No Time to Die, which is the 50th? I have no idea. James Bond movie. And James Bond is in a lot of ways a fascinating franchise. First off, it never managed to create a cinematic universe despite a gazillion movies being made based on his character. I mean, I could see a Felix Leiter movie. Why not? He's the CIA equivalent of James Bond, played by Jeffrey Wright in this upcoming movie. And why would you not spin that character off? It's an entirely different mindset that people went into movies during James Bond's heyday than now, obviously. So, there's that. And also, it's supposedly the last James Bond for Daniel Craig. And seeing that these movies are really tough on a person's actual body, he's been injured numerous times during the filming of this movie. I can see him going, okay, I've made gobs of money already. It's time to call it quits. This movie is also the first time an American director has directed a James Bond film. That's right. Everyone prior to this time has been directed by a British director. So that's a change. And I suspect it will be a change we will see. Not in the broader details, but the smaller ones, I suspect. If only because American directors bring a different sensibility than British ones, than foreign ones on the whole. So I hope that's something we can actually see. Though personally, I'm not a huge James Bond fan. The series has its highs, it has its lows. And those feelings are directly proportional based on the Bond. I mean, there have been quite a few of them as it is. And I tend to be more partial, I hate to say, to the Roger Moore James Bonds. They're the silliest, they're the most unrealistic, which is saying something in the James Bond world. But they have this energy, this joie de vivre, if you will, that makes them a lot of fun. The more grimmer Bonds, which I would say are the Sean Connery Bonds, they're enjoyable as well, though I don't like them quite as much. And I think the Timothy Dalton James Bonds are a bit of an anomaly, in the sense that you can tell that the creators of the franchise were seeking something new from the character. And so their Bond, his Bond, I should say, is very empathetic to people. He just seems to care a lot, which, when you have a character like James Bond, is kind of unusual. And it's an approach that I frankly think is probably the most balanced of all the approaches. Pierce Brosnan's approach was actually pretty good as well. It was less empathetic than Timothy Dalton's, though at the same time not as brutal as Daniel Craig's or Sean Connery's. In any case, let's take a look at the second trailer for No Time to Die, which supposedly is coming out in November. I say supposedly because COVID-19 is still a very real thing, and it's still difficult to get people into theaters, for good reason. So, the idea that this movie is going to come out in 2 months, I'm kind of dubious about, to be totally honest, because James Bond is MGM's crown jewel. It brings in millions of dollars, billions actually, if you consider the entire franchise. And the idea that this could potentially fail, not due to any fault of its own, but because people aren't going to the theaters, is a really scary thought, if you ask me. Now, that situation can change, because people are beginning to adapt and theater chains as well are beginning to adapt to the new reality. And so by November, maybe things will be safe enough and people will be confident enough to go to theaters. I don't put my money on that. I think it's a bad bet. And if No Time to Die comes out in November, I think it's doomed to fail, which would be a huge blow for MGM. Well, I should say in this country. You see, other countries have been wise enough to react to coronavirus with a sense of immediacy and a sense of importance. And they shut down, which means that I can't say it's run its course internationally, but in most countries, it's under control and it's on the decline, in fact. United States, not so much. In any case, let's take a look at the trailer for No Time to Die. See, it's hard to make stunts not look stunty.
The past isn't dead.
Universal? That's interesting.
James, fate draws us back together. Now your enemy is my enemy.
His name is Safin.
And what does he want?
Revenge. Me.
When her secret finds its way out, it'll be the death of you.
You can imagine why I've come back to play.
There's a young lady in Santiago I want you to meet.
You're late.
That was
When you're
Felix
ready.
Leiter.
Salute.
I met your new 00. She's a disarming young woman.
I get why you shot him.
Yeah, well.
Oh,
everyone
man.
tries at least once.
Certain segment of the population is going to go nuts for Black 00. Female, no less.
Bond. We both eradicate people to make the world a better place. I just want to be a little tidier.
Come on, Bond. Where the hell are you?
Have you ever flown one of these?
Nope.
Harder to tell the good from bad, villains from heroes these days.
What is it?
You don't know what this is. He's going to kill millions.
If we don't do this, there will be nothing left to save.
Well, that was the trailer for No Time to Die, and notice some things in it. It seemed to be more relying on technology. The glider that changed to a submarine, it's something that recent past James Bonds have kind of moved away from. And, well, I should say, when I say recent past James Bonds, I should say Daniel Craig James Bonds have moved away from. Less the reliance on technology, and as well as the stakes are extremely high. Now notice that this new villain, played by Rami Malek, is threatening the world, supposedly. It's not a small little segment of anything. It's the whole enchilada. The stakes are changing. In other words, James Bond is getting bigger. This is a change. Well, I should say a change back to the past. In the sense that the Roger Moore and Sean Connery James Bonds tended to revolve around massive stakes. The Timothy Dalton and the Daniel Craig James Bonds, lesser so. But it's getting bigger again. And this, I think, shows the direction, the future direction of the franchise. Obviously without Daniel Craig, but with massive stakes involved. It's going back. Now, without seeing the movie, I can't tell what it's like tonally. That trailer was relatively grim in some ways. But I get the feeling we're going to be hearkening back to something that's more like the Roger Moore James Bond than, let's say, the current Daniel Craig James Bonds. In any case, that's just my feelings about this thing. What do you think? This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Trailer Into Reaction. Do you agree? Disagree? Let me know down below. And since you're there, consider a like or a follow. Peace.